So what if your competitors, or anybody else for that matter, could see exactly how much money your business makes? So for years, decades even, the small and micro entities in the UK have been able to keep their profit and loss private. It's only the audit size, larger organisations that need to publish their P&L on HMRC and Companies House. But from April 2027, the rules are changing. So under the Economic Crime and Corporate Transparency Act, which is easy for me to say, apparently it gets shortened to the ECCTA, which isn't that much easier. But businesses, all businesses, limited companies are going to be forced to publish their profit and loss accounts on the public record. So that includes even the smallest of businesses if you're incorporated, so even micro entities. Now, I have heard a rumour that there's a possibility that there's going to be yet another government U-turn and that they will remove this requirement for the smallest of businesses, micro entities, to publish their full P&L at Companies House. But that's yet to be confirmed. So as soon as there is more guidance, we'll be able to let you know. But at the minute, that hasn't been confirmed. A micro entity, by the way, if you're wondering, you need to have two of the following three things to be considered a micro entity. So it's a turnover, it's just the levels have just increased very recently. It's a turnover of 1 million or less, assets of 500,000 or less, and 10 or fewer employees. So if you hit any two of those, you are no longer considered a micro entity and you'll be a small business. So what we know at the moment is that from the 1st of April 2027, any accounts filed after this date will have to publish their full P&L at Companies House as part of that submission. Now, under normal circumstances, changes like this, whenever there have been changes to corporation tax rules and other rules like that, it would apply to companies with year ends on or after a certain date. So if your limited company had a year end of 30th of April, then you would have to file the accounts in that way. But if you had a year end of 31st of March, you wouldn't. What we understand at the moment is this is about the timing of the filing. So, there could be opportunities there if you can get really well organised to bring the filing of your accounts forward, potentially to before that deadline. So something to consider. One of the things that just drives me nuts about this is that we already file full P&Ls with the HMRC. It just doesn't get published on the public record. So I don't understand. They've already got the information. It's difficult to kind of understand why the publishing of this is going to help in terms of economic crime, especially where it comes to small and micro businesses. Transparency is important, but it's a little bit, in my opinion, like using a sledgehammer to crack a nut. There have got to be other ways that they can address this problem. But, unfortunately, I'm not the one making the rules, and whatever gets agreed and legislated for is whatever will happen. So, what could that mean for real businesses? So if you think about it, if your company is like heavily reliant on one or two clients, what's the impact for you going to be whenever your clients look at it and they can see that, oh, well, your turnover was X last year and I constituted 60% of it? They might try and argue for different terms. They might hold off paying you. Suddenly you're giving them a lot more power than perhaps you would otherwise choose to. Likewise, if you've just got one or two suppliers that you're highly, highly dependent on, it's the same sort of thing. They could make extra miles, put your prices up, safe in the knowledge that you really depend on them more than they perhaps depend on you. If you are struggling financially, well, what's that going to say? How are clients, particularly maybe new potential clients, going to respond to that? How are the suppliers going to feel? Could suppliers stop potentially supplying you if they're a little bit worried that you're not profitable enough to be here in 6, 12, 18 months' time? I suppose, what about your employees as well? What are they going to think if they can look on the public record and see that you made absolutely naff all profit last year? How secure are they going to feel in their jobs? Will they start looking around for something else somewhere else where they've got more confidence in the future of the business? I mean, on the flip side, if you're doing absolutely brilliantly, you could have suppliers feeling like you're taking the mick in the terms that you've asked for. You could have clients feeling that the pricing really is unfair if they see you doing really, really well. And likewise, you could have disgruntled employees starting to feel a little bit, out of sorts that the business is doing so well, yet they're just being paid a wage for the job that they do. So, they're just not issues that at the minute as a small or micro entity you're having to deal with, and they're not issues that I think you should be having to deal with. So what can you do about it? Well, if the legislation does come into effect, there's nothing you can do to change the legislation. There's nothing you can do to keep your information off the public record, but you can put a bit of planning in place ahead of the game. So, first and foremost, get clear in your status. Are you a micro entity or are you a small business? If you're a small but growing business, where do you think you'll be by April 2027? Plan your filings. Work with your accountant or your whoever's going to file your accounts. Work with them to ensure that you understand what information you need to get to them, and that they have planned you in to get that next filing done before the 31st of March 2027, if at all possible. But be proactive about this and make sure that you're working with them and there's a plan in place. Think about the disclosures that you or your accountant has to make about your accounts. So if your P&L has any sort of sensitivity to it, if it paints a sensitive picture of your business, you consider how that might affect clients, suppliers, or indeed staff. And just, be clear on your story. You don't need to make stuff up, but quite often there's a reason why maybe a business looks poor one year. If it can be down to timing, it can be down to investment, there can be all sorts of reasons that the picture might be a little bit sensitive. So just have a plan in place about how you're going to communicate this and how you're going to answer any questions that are asked. And you probably need to include your team, especially your customer facing team, in this and make sure that they've got the right answers to be able to deal with any of these questions that they might get from customers, from prospects, from suppliers potentially. Tidy up your financials if needs be. If your profitability looks a little bit out of line or you've been through a rough patch, again, there are things you're going to be able to do. This isn't about hiding stuff. It's just about being strategic and having clarity on the communication and the plan for your business. So, the best business owners, the best leaders that I know, they don't kind of go and bury their head in the sand whenever times get tough. Something like this happens, there's not a darn thing you can do about it. So concentrate only on what's within your circle of control. Don't worry about all of the other stuff, all of the other noise out there, because there's not a darn thing you can do to influence it. So just focus on what you can influence and it'll bring you out in a stronger, better place in the long run. And of course, talk to your accountant, because they will understand what you need to do and what sort of picture you can paint and what disclosures are going to be made at Companies House. They'll be able to keep you in touch with that. And of course, if they can't come to us, be really happy to look after you and explain to you. But also keep an eye on this channel. Ask any questions. We will always endeavour to answer any sensible question that's asked. No such thing as a stupid one. Keep up to date. It's going to be a big, big culture shift for UK businesses at a time whenever we are being put under more and more pressure in terms of taxation and legislation. And I think we've all got to work together to help each other out and make sure that we understand exactly what's happening and what's expected of us and how we can work our way through that. So that's it. If you've got any questions, as I say, pop them down below or get in touch and we will be really happy to help. Okay, bye for now.